Hello everybody, welcome to another One Piece review. This time we'll be covering manga chapter 1104, and it's been quite a while since we had the last chapter. We had to wait quite a while for the conclusion of whether or not Kuma's punch would actually land on Saturn. To the satisfaction of pretty much everybody in the One Piece fandom, that punch connected. Which I'll get into that, but more importantly to me, Oda's opened up a plethora of options as how do the Straw Hats get away from Egghead Island. Like, there's a couple of ways, but I'll get into that as we go along with this chapter. I mentioned a lot about the Egghead Island arc in the anime starting. It's been streamed on Netflix for the first time ever. Forgot to mention during that review that the Monsters one-shot, which Oda did back in the day, that's getting an anime adaptation on Netflix. That's going to be airing in January, actually, this year. So, and actually, I saw the trailer. It looked pretty good. And obviously, Ryuma front and center is the main character, which obviously drew inspiration for creating the character of Ryuma in Thriller Bark, a member of the Shibutsuki clan. So, as much as I would like to think that Oda has a hand in maybe giving us a bit of information when it comes to the Shibutsuki clan, I don't think it's going to have too many ties with what's going on in One Piece. Again, it's a one-shot manga that Oda did back in the day. That'd be kind of cool, considering he's a canon character in the story, but since we passed Wano anyway, this is just another aspect of Oda's hard work finally paying off. He's been given his roses, deservedly so. So this is another tidbit of greatness that Netflix is going to animate. I can't wait to see this. So we do get a bit of information. We get to see three main characters. Obviously, Ryuma. The tale of this is Ryuma slays the dragon. That's basically the legend. So we're actually going to see that in animated format. So it's going to be in productions by EH Studio. I'm not familiar with them. So if you are, let me know in the comments what kind of work they've done. So it looks pretty good from what I saw from the trailer. Like we obviously got Ryuma, we got Creano. The guy looks like Mihawk. Don't lie to yourself. As soon as you saw that character, you thought of Hawkeye Mihawk. Don't lie to yourself, because that's exactly what I thought. So that was kind of interesting. We get to see the girl as well with the orange hair, Freya. So who could be the love interest for Ryuma? I don't know. But the title, and it's the 103 Mercenaries Dragon Damnation, which is interesting because that is actually the name of the final attack that Zoro used in his fight with King. So that's kind of interesting. Or like I said, I don't expect too much when it comes to like the nods to One Piece, because it's kind of like its own. It's its own tale, so I don't know. It'd be kind of cool if Oda did that, but or if the EH Studios do that. But we get into this chapter, and we start off with a cover page with Sanji, who's presented another wedding cake. I assume he's cut another wedding cake for the second time in his life. This time for the mouse, who's synonymous with Sanji, and who's proposing to another mouse. And they're about to get engaged with Sanji with the wedding cake. So there you go. And Sanji had a pretty interesting role in this chapter, I will say. So we start off with Kuma and wait of whether or not Kuma's punch was actually going to land on Saturn. Boy, did we get into that real quick. And in one panel, it's like Saturn's like actually thinking about, oh, this buccaneer brat. He has like this stoic expression, but before the attack lands, you see the concern in his eye, which is something that he did not have when Barney attacked with the sword. I just want to point that out. I don't know if he's using Armament Haki on his hand or not, but either way, it connected and it did some major damage. I'll say that. I did like the aspect of including every significant part of Kuma's flashback into this, building up into this one climactic punch. It looked like he was going on raw emotion alone, but we don't really know if that's what Kuma's thinking. So the punch connected. And Saturn says, I made a contingency plan of once the revolutionaries took him in to self-destruct. Obviously, he did not do that. That was Vegapunk's handiwork, and we get to find that out later on. But Kuma's punch landed, and boy, did it ever do some damage. And it's surprising that Saturn didn't really do anything to dodge. So he was expecting that self-destruct to go off without a hitch. He got sent flying through buildings throughout Egg Island. So you see a bunch of buildings get collapsed with Saturn. But unfortunately, that's as good as he's going to get for Kuma, because he's like literally stood still. Like he's kneeled down. He can't move. That may be the last attack for Kuma. I don't know. But boy, did that have some raw emotion behind it. There was a plan to have a self-destruct mechanism inside of Kuma once he got taken in by the revolutionaries, but Vegapunk decided not to do that because he couldn't do that. Instead, instead of making him into a bomb, he programmed to shut Kuma's body down entirely, on top of losing his individuality as a human. So he should be able to move, called the Vegapunk, but here he is in the flesh. We get the reunion of Kuma and Bonnie. Bonnie's obviously shedding the emotion, considering Kuma can't respond with those feelings because he can't feel anything right now. So, like I said, the emotion's coming from Bonnie. Obviously, this is going to be emotional no matter what. But then Vegapunk says something interesting. It says he shouldn't be able to move, but then again, he's a Buccaneer. So, again, the intrigue when it comes to the Buccaneer race and Kuma's lineage. So, that has to tie itself up at some point. They're just going to shoot by that? I don't think so. What I do find interesting, despite the Marines, you got Vegapunk, you got Bonnie and Kuma. In the other two panels below, you got Sentomaru and you got Kizaru. I don't find that to be a coincidence. I'll get into that later on. But this was obviously an emotional moment. I think the emotion came from Bonnie, but the fact that Kuma couldn't respond, I think hits even harder. Like, I figured that was going to be the case, but Oda did a masterful job of portraying this moment the way it should have been. That doesn't last long because Sam breaks out literally, and Sam reveals like he lost an arm. Not a problem since he can regenerate. We know this. Sam wants a response from Vegapunk. This is your doing, isn't it? Vegapunk kind of gives a vague response. You could say it's the power of love, which I do find it interesting because Sanji's in that scene as well. But Sanji notices Saturn's regenerating and goes into attack. Shout out to Sanji because Kuma can't move. Bonnie can't, obviously. I don't know if Bonnie would have been able to dodge that, but she would have gone anywhere. So Sanji goes in. He kicks away the attack, deflecting Saturn's hand, or the needle that was coming for Kuma's neck. So Sanji kicked it away. So that was an epic moment for Sanji. I find that very interesting because, again, I want you to pay close attention to that because this is something I've brought up when it comes to not only Luffy and Bonnie's interactions, but also Sanji's had some interactions with Bonnie as well. And some of them involve Kuma. So I want you to pay close attention to it because it's going to have some type of it's going to have a payoff when obviously she's interacted with Luffy. She's obviously interacted with Sanji, Jinbei and Chopper as well to some extent. And after Sanji deflected this attack, Frankie comes and shouts out to him. He actually charges up Radical Beam. Kizaru's like, oh, you've actually grown quite a lot. So Frankie lands the Radical Beam on Saturn. I don't think he did significant damage considering he didn't try to dodge it. Kizaru comes in, kicks Frankie. At this point, I'm thinking we're going to get Sanji versus Kizaru. That'd be lit, but considering that Kizaru is kind of damaged at this point from Luffy's final attack in Gear 5th, this would be kind of an opportunity for Sanji. I don't know if that's going to happen considering how the end of this chapter played itself out, and I'll get into that in a bit. But, so Frankie gets kicked by Kizaru. Kizaru still has enough. He still has enough energy to kick Frankie after laying down all this time. Keep that in mind. Atlas grabs a hold of Kuma considering he can't move. So, I mean, that's a feat of strength for Atlas. So she's carrying Kuma, Bonnie, they're looking to dip, and then all of a sudden says, no, we can't have this. We must eliminate everybody. There's a problem. There's a Buster Call coming in. And it was described it's going to be worse than what was on O'Hara. So Saturn's not playing any more games. The problem, the thing is like we know this. The Straw Hats are getting away. It's been teased they're going to a certain island. It just depends when and how. So that's not changing. But that's how the chapter ends. And I found it very interesting that Oda decides to have Vegapunk actually put how sad you are, Kizaru. I thought that was very interesting. I said this, obviously, it was highlighted in the chapter. We saw Sentomaru and Kizaru in the same scene in the two panels below, where we got Bonnie and Kuma's reunion. I don't find that to be just a coincidence because they were included into the interactions and evictions with Kuma, Barney, and Vegapunk during Kuma's flashback. Oda highlighted that for a reason, so I don't find that just to be just a coincidence that you had to happen to have Sentomaru and Kizaru in that same scene in this chapter in the present time. So, and the fact that he ended this chapter, like, I'll have to put on new sunglasses because I'm going to embarrass myself at this rate. What is he going to do? Because obviously Oda has been teasing something with Kizaru ever since last year. He met Kizaru, brought up, oh, we're just cogs on the machine, and we know that's going to change. And here we are. Oda's made it a point to like have to highlight that Kizaru and Sentomaru have had interactions with Vegapunk, Barney, and Kuma in the past, and now we're seeing it at the forefront. So, what's going to be the payoff? So, that's one instance of this great escape for the Straw Hats on Egghead Island. So, either Kizaru does something, or the Revolutionaries show up, and my other option was maybe if Saturn is to go down this arc, then maybe Luffy and Barney has something to do with it. But judging from what's going on here, and I don't see that to be the case, it would be cool. And we don't, again, I said this in the last review as well, we don't really know what's going to happen with Saturn. So there's a common enemy for Barney. Whether or not, I don't know what's going to happen to that. We got Kuma here, but that wasn't that's not the twist. Like, we knew Kuma was going to show up at some point. It's just how and when we got there. The twist is going to become either Kizaru showing up or the Revolutionaries are showing up. It's one of those two. Like, I would like to see a team up. We're going to get a team up, an alliance between Luffy and Barney, but it has to involve Saturn to some extent because he's the root of Barney's problems, and Kuma. Now, what could be the wild card, and a lot of people thinking that Kuma could end up dying, and that still could be the case before Egghead Island wraps up. But let's say, for instance, Kuma doesn't die, and somehow the Straw Hats, because I don't see them leaving Kuma, and I don't see Barney leaving Kuma to die. And if Kuma can't really unleash another attack, he's not going to be able to erase the fatigue on Luffy. By the way, I find it very interesting. Like, Oda did not show 1 ounce of Luffy in this chapter. But we saw in the previous one where Luffy was eating, and we didn't get to see Luffy in this chapter. We saw everybody else. Well, we saw everybody else in that area was other members of the Straw Hats that we haven't seen in quite a while. Nami, Chopper turned into what could be York or Stussy, because they have white or blonde hair. Now, a lot of people think that also could be Robin. But let's not also forget the fact we haven't seen Brooke either. So I don't think Robin will be left by herself, considering she sustained injuries during her clash with York, which we have yet to see, by the way. So just got to point that out. But there's some other factors to play here. Like we don't know what's going on with the Sunny right now. We don't know what's going on with other groups of the Straw Hats going on right now. We also have Zoro and Rob Lucci going on right now. So that has to be wrapped up, or we have to find out something. There has to be progression here, because we've got progression when it comes to like Saturn and Kizaru, because now they're initiating the Buster Call and all hell's about to break loose. Like I said, I feel like somebody's going to show up to interfere. The only party that makes sense right now is the Revolutionary Army. Like, it's just when and how. Also, we got a vessel with the Blackbeard Jolly Roger on it, so that has to play a role. They have to show up if they haven't already on the island. So this is going to be some crazy stuff leading into the finale. I can't wait to see what Oda has cooked up. Like I said, I find it very convenient that Kizaru was in bits and pieces when it came to like Barney and Kuma's reunion, along with Sentomaru. That wasn't done just by random coincidence. And also the fact that Oda didn't show Luffy at all in this chapter. So that's going to play a role. I feel like if Kuma does somehow make it out off the island and the Straw Hats are actually able to free him away along with Barney, that's going to add more to this alliance between Luffy and Barney taking down the world government, because it's not just Saturn that's caused them to suffer. We have a celestial dragon who hasn't been name dropped yet, but it was mentioned Ginny was the 8th lady of Marajose. That wasn't mentioned by mere coincidence. No, there was a reason for that. So that may play a role. Like I said, this is the interaction with Sanji saving Bonnie and Kuma. That's going to play along as well. So Oda has multiple options to use here. He could use the Revolutionary Army as a scapegoat. We could get more than one reunion in this arc. I said that before. With Luffy and Dragon meeting for the first time. That would be kind of cool. We could get Bonnie and Luffy teaming up, since it was stated by Saturn in the previous chapter. She hasn't been influenced by Nika's abilities yet. So that has to play a role. And I said that in the last review, that was him thinking internally, not speaking out loud. So why would he do that if it's not going to play a role at some point? Kizaru, because there's been way too much focus on Kizaru for him to just be a pawn in all this and not do something about it. Like, Oda has to do something to kind of redeem Kizaru, because in my honest opinion, like, the way that Admirals have been highlighted right now is not it. I'm sorry. Like, I said this when Gear 5th Luffy grabbed a hold of Kizaru and he couldn't dodge, despite the fact Luffy was nerfed anyway. What's going on with the observation haki? And if Sam doesn't have observation haki, or at least he didn't even try to dodge Bonnie's attack, yet he kind of like sweated when it comes to Kuma's. So we don't really know about the Gorosei. I would suspect they have observation haki, but we don't really know. But if Kizaru has some type of future sight, which a lot of people seem to think he does, then why didn't he dodge Luffy's attack back then? So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, unless he was playing around, dicking around, which we know he's a troll, but like, this is not the time to be dicking around, especially with an opponent like Gear 5th Luffy. Like, even he recognized that in that chapter. So I pointed that out. It didn't make Kizaru look any better, even if he is playing around, so he has to be redeemed some way. Like, that final quote by Kizaru, I feel like that was Oda saying, okay, like, there's going to be some type of resurgence when it comes to the Admirals, because otherwise, what's there to threat? Al-Qaeda couldn't take Kuma out, legit. He doesn't... I'm supposed to believe he doesn't have future sight, and he wasn't able to think, like, Kuma wasn't going to be able to dodge. So, yeah, so something has to happen involving the Admirals. Otherwise, what is there to threat at this point? At this point, Emu and Blackbeard are going to be the candidates for the final villain of the series at this rate. Like, unless it's Al-Qaeda that's going to go down at the hands of Dragon and they both end up taking each other out, I don't know. A lot of people seem to think that Al-Qaeda is going to be one of the final villains for Luffy. It may change if Kizaru does something to Saturn to like re-establish himself, maybe. But let me know what you guys think down below. Those are 3 options. It can't be anything else right now, because whatever happens going into Elbaf, Oda cannot juggle this, that, and that. He can't juggle this and that at separate locations. Like, he can't have like, he's gonna have to like have certain things connect like he did here, but he can't go everywhere else. Like, he doesn't have the time to do that like this time. And the reason for that is because, well, despite even though we got major success for One Piece last year, let's be honest, the pacing of the manga took a hit because of it. So I don't know if Oda's gonna have a say in the second season of the live action when that gets finished. But either way, it's like, so yeah, so whatever happens on Elbaf, a lot of things have to tie itself up. Vivi is another one that has to tie itself up, because we know she's with Morgan's News. She has to meet up with Luffy. Sabo also says if Luffy needs his help, Sabo will be there. He said that after Dressrosa, and that has to play a role as well. And also, King Cobra said to Sabo to pass this message on to Vivi and Luffy. If Sabo doesn't pass on the message, then I feel like Vivi's going to run into Luffy at some point. Let me know what you guys think down below. I can't wait to see how Oda wraps this arc up. And when that happens, it's going to be some crazy stuff. That's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like the review if you did it, thumbs up. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys' support. So catch you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.